Hello and welcome to another installment of my War Thunder series. I'm your host Hellfox, and today we are looking at the April Fool's event. There are three parts to this event. The most popular one is most likely Warfare 2077, which was actively advertised by Gaijin. Then there's also the goofy and quite bonkers TailSpin event. And last but not least, you are also able to craft some pretty interesting things in this event. Now let's look at everything individually, and we'll go through the contents of Warfare 2077, TailSpin, and the crafting. Now Warfare 2077 comes with new vehicles, new gadget, new technologies. I'm just gonna have a brief overview of what's in this, and I'll link to a site where you can get more detailed information later. Now leading the pack is the main battle tank Minotaur. This is basically your average standard tank. Get into it, you have some fun. It's all good. It has a 140mm cannon, which is okay, but in this particular style of warfare that we're in now, the role of the main battle tank is somewhat outdated, in my opinion, but we'll get to this later on. The second tank that you get is the Hydra. It's a rocket tank, and it's much more suited to this new kind of warfare. It basically is a sort of mobile artillery. Thirdly, we have the Harpy, which is an AA and missile defense tank. Basically, it's, well, AA against air vehicles, and it's also what saves you from Hydra attacks, because Hydras shoot missiles like crazy, and the Harpy is capable of defending against those missiles, and it does have some offensive capabilities as well. For all you pilots out there, there's the heavy attack drone Wyvern, which has a whole arrangement of possible loadouts to make your enemies' days really difficult. But there's not only the heavy attack drone, there's also a recon drone called the Griffin 3, which you basically launch from one of the vehicles, and it flies over the battlefield. You can control it manually to spot enemy targets or to engage them straight away, because that little drone also does do some damage on enemy tanks. However, the main use is spot enemy tanks and then follow up with a volley of missiles. What I found particularly interesting about this new event and the 2077 aspect of it is that you have a lot of cool new toys to play with, such as active camouflage, which does actually make your tank somewhat see-through, well, at least most of it. You also get the opportunity to have EMP attacks, which is something that might actually come up in the future in the actual game, because Gaijin is putting in more and more modern vehicles which are using electronics and therefore are susceptible to EMP attacks. And the whole drone aspect will probably be implemented in one way or another in the actual game as well in the future, because drones are something we're using right now in the present on the battlefield. So the more modern vehicles Gaijin is putting out there, the more likely it's going to be that they're going to use drones for especially reconnaissance, but also maybe for small assault roles on perhaps lighter targets. So my personal pros for Warfare 2077 are lots of new toys to play with. Seriously, if you get in there, if you're one of those high tier players, you'll be used to having tons of things that your vehicle can do, whereas people who are still playing in the World War II era, they basically are left with a main gun and maybe a machine gun. But for everyone else who has already progressed quite a lot, this will not be too difficult, and the new toys are great. Secondly, the vehicles do look pretty cool, in my opinion. They really look futuristic, but not too far into the future. There's no Star Trek-y sci-fi stuff happening here. It's just things that are plausible in terms of weaponry, in terms of defensive armaments, and also in terms of design. So from that, we can basically guess what is coming in the future, because Gaijin is obviously using events like this to test out new ideas, new concepts, new ways of approaching warfare in the future. And the more they release in terms of new vehicles, they will probably take one or two aspects of the Warfare 2077 game style and implement them in the actual War Thunder game in the future. As for the cons of Warfare 2077, there's hardly any classical tank warfare from what I've seen. Your best bet is to stay somewhere the enemy doesn't see you, spot them with your laser, and then just bombard them with missiles. So if you're someone who's into futuristic warfare, that's perfectly fine. If you are someone who is more into the classical sort of tank style battles, where you hide behind a rock and then you just inch out until you see the enemy, fire your shot, and go right back into cover, this might not be the game style for you. Another problem I personally had were the new toys and gimmicks that you get, because there's just so many of them. And for new players like me, who have been playing for a few months only, and I've only just reached basically the Cold War era tanks on the German side. So, I'm currently, I don't know, level 26, 27, something like that. So I'm basically used to, the classical style of warfare, where all you have is maybe different sorts of ammo. Perhaps if you are in a recon vehicle, you can spot the enemy and deploy some smoke. But the style that you play in Warfare 2077 is a lot more complex. You are given a lot more toys, a lot more options to, protect yourself on the battlefield. But this is very complex, so you constantly have to press buttons, and the layout is not all that great either. You have to go, Alt X while driving, and then you have to shoot, and then you have to switch ammo, and your fingers just get entangled, and your brain does as well. You do get used to it after a while, but be prepared to have a few rounds in the beginning where you're really overwhelmed, where you're not going to do your best. Now let's get to the second part of the whole Easter/April Fool's event, which is TailSpin. TailSpin is a mode where basically you're just doing dogfights with airplanes, a few bombing runs as well, but it's mainly dogfights. You are given a ton of planes. They're really goofy looking, very cartoonish, and very, very strong weaponry actually. It doesn't take a lot to take down enemy planes. Let's have a look at the individual planes, and I'll just give you a very quick, brief overview. Let's start with the Nimble, which is the very first plane you get. You get it for free, you don't have to do anything for it. You have the option of taking it out 3 times in a battle, and it's a good plane. It's not the fastest plane, it doesn't have the best armament, it doesn't have the best climbing speed, but you do stand a chance against your opponents in it, especially on the map that you're playing on, because with all those floating islands that you can fly through and everything, you do have a chance of losing someone who's on your tail, and then have your teammate go for him or something like that. So the Nimble is cool. It's a nice plane. It's very easy to get used to. Secondly, we have the Wind Screech. You get that for 10 kills or assists, and it's a lot faster than the Nimble and a lot more maneuverable, but it does have less firepower, so keep that in mind. Third plane is Bumblebee, which I personally love. You get it at 25 kills or assists. It has 6 machine guns, bombs or rockets. And what's better than having 6 machine guns and bombs or rockets? More guns and more bombs or more rockets. That's better, and that's where the Hornet comes in. The Hornet is available at 50 kills or assists, and this is a plane that does a lot of damage if used correctly. There is the option of bombing the enemy airship. Basically, it's an aircraft carrier in the sky. That will end the round straight away once that is destroyed. But the Hornet and the Bumblebee actually are also very, very good at dogfighting, especially because they have so many guns. They do a lot of damage. Next up is the Red Goose, which comes at 85 kills or assists. That's the first plane that has defensive turrets, and it does have super powerful Golden Dragon cannons, so be aware of those. And talking of being aware of something, be aware of a tornado if it creeps up on you. Because the tornado, which comes in at 130 kills or assists, has very fast rapid fire autocannons. They will take you out of the sky very, very fast if you let them. Next up is the Panther, not the tank, the plane, which comes in at 185 kills or assists. It's the most advanced fighter with the best engine and the best weapons. You cannot get better than this thing. But getting to 185 kills or assists does take a while. Last but not least, we have the Sly Duck, which comes in at 250 kills or assists. It does have 20mm autocannons and machine guns and defensive turrets. So this thing is a beast, even though it might not look like it. Now, as for the pros and cons of this mode, it's not as popular as Warfare 2077. However, in my personal opinion, this is a crazy, goofy, funky, fun mode to play. War Thunder tends to be very serious, very realistic in a sense, even the arcade battles. This one is just completely off the hook, and it's just there to have fun. It's super saturated, super colorful, and yeah, basically you just go out and have fun. This is a mode for my inner 8-year-old, basically, who loves everything that's colorful, bright, and goes boom in a sort of cartoonish style. And talking of the cartoonish style, just a little detail here. When you play this mode, try to have a listen to the weapon sounds, because they're very funny in my opinion, especially when you drop bombs. That sound just makes me crack up in front of my computer every time. Now, as for the cons, and talking of the enemy airship, there is absolutely no point in being able to destroy the enemy airship, because that will end the round for everyone. So basically you're aiming for a lot of play time, a lot of battle time, and a high percentage of battle activity, which does not happen if the first thing you do is attack the enemy airship. Now, the enemy airship cannot be damaged by regular machine guns from my experience, so it does take rockets or bombs to do this. But yeah, why would you? Why would you want to end the round? You gain more in terms of crafting items if you just keep playing as long as possible, if you have as many dogfights as possible, a lot of engagement. So just do yourself a favor and don't attack the enemy airship. Another con is that this mode is super goofy. I mean, this is War Thunder, which is targeting an audience who is into tank warfare, airplane warfare, and ship warfare in sort of a very realistic style. This mode is basically the absolute opposite of realism. And another con, just a personal one, and it's not really a con of the game mode itself, but it's the fact that it's not here to stay. I would love this game mode to be in there just to have some fun. One, that moment when you're fed up because you got sniped across the entire map and through bushes and everything, and he was not able to see you whatsoever, but he apparently still did, and you're just really pissed off. You should be able to hop on to this mode and then just, have some fun with it. Don't take anything serious. Just play, shoot down a lot of planes, enjoy yourself, and then go back to realistic tank warfare, plane warfare, ship warfare, what have you. Now, the last aspect that I want to have a look at is the crafting aspect. This is even more complicated than everything else so far, but once you get a hang of it, it's okay. I'm just gonna cover the basics here, and if you're interested, I'll link to a page where you can get more information on it. So basically, the whole idea is that you farm items. You get material, rounds, or part of the Minotaur tank scheme. These are the 3 items that you can farm. Material is also broken into several subcategories, but you do get material for every 10 minutes in battle with no less than 50% activity. So basically you're always guaranteed to get some material if the round is not over super quick. Now, as for the rounds, you need to be in battle for 30 minutes or more and have no less than 50% activity. And for the parts of the Minotaur tank scheme, you have to be in first place in the battle. And this is going to be the hardest one, because depending on who you're playing against and everything, it's really difficult to get on top. And I'm afraid that it might cause people to actively engage in cheating just to get those tank schemes, because you will need them, and quite a lot of them, if you want to go for all the possible tanks and, well, vehicles, not just tanks, that you can craft later on. Now, talking about those vehicles, basically what you do is you take your farmed items. If you have everything that is required, you craft a Minotaur tank, and you can exchange that for a new premium vehicle. Though this is not a 1-to-1 ratio in every case, so for some of the vehicles you will need more than just one Minotaur tank. The vehicles that you can get are the Su-76D from the USSR, the JDS Yugure from Japan, XM8 from the US of A, and the F4F Early from Germany. Which brings us directly to the pros, because one of the pro aspects of the new crafting event, in my opinion, is that the premium vehicles that you can craft are pretty cool in terms of looks, in terms of being spread out over different nations, and also because you don't just get tanks, or you don't just get planes or ships. You get whatever you want. If you want a ship, go for the Japanese ship. If you're more into planes, go for the German F4F Early. So there's really something for everyone here. And also, because there are quite a few vehicles that you can get, and you have to do a lot to get them, you will have to play a lot, and I mean a lot, of War Thunder, which I personally am a fan of, because right now it's Easter, so it's the holidays, I have time, everyone else has time, so why not play together as much as we can and get something cool out of it afterwards. And the last pro point I have on my list is that you don't have to play the new modes. If you're not a fan of, super modern futuristic warfare in 2077, or TailSpins is just too goofy, too toony for you, well, then just play a regular War Thunder game, as you do every day, and you still get the rewards. And if you are someone who says, well, the vehicles they offer as premium vehicles that I can craft are really not to my liking and I don't want them, well, you don't have to. Everything you farm can be sold in the shop, so might as well, play, farm, and get something good out of it. Maybe get a different premium vehicle that is more to your liking. Now, as for the cons of the crafting event, there was only just one thing I could really think of, which was that it's not really beginner friendly. It's a bit complex to get your head around, and you might have to do some further research on the website, on the War Thunder website. But once you get it, it's pretty simple. But getting there is the difficult part, for especially for someone who's just a casual gamer. Now, what's my conclusion on the April Fool's event? Having looked at April Fool's events from the years before, there were some really great ones, but there were also ones where I would have been disappointed. With this one, I'm really not disappointed. I really like it. The futuristic sort of warfare of 2077 is not really my cup of tea, but I am a huge fan of TailSpin. I love the cartoonish, goofy nature of it. It's completely over the top, and I think it's a really good alternative to the more serious and realistic sort of warfare that you get in the regular game. As for the crafting, I'm not quite sure about it because so far I did do a lot of farming, but I'm not sure how much you can actually get out of it. I mean, the event is only going on for a few days, so will I be able to get everything that I need, or is Gaijin basically forcing me to buy everything that I need in the shop? And if that happens, well, I'm gonna be very disappointed. But for now, let's just stay positive, and I'll give you an update on if I got something out of the event of the crafting, or if it just doesn't work out at all. So I hope I was able to give you a good overview over the April Fool's event. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you found something that you're looking for, and you can engage in the whole farming process now. Have tons of fun in TailSpin, and I would be interested to know what are your experiences with this new event. Does it live up to the craziness of the earlier events from the years past, or are you not into it at all? Let me know in the comments, like and subscribe as always, and thank you very much for your time. I shall see you on the battlefield. Bye bye.